But one of the passes leading up to it, it's called Rotang Pass, which means like pile of dead bodies. Like, are you really lost? Like, take a moment and look around. Like, oh, you're also in the Himalayas at 12,000 feet in the stars. It's beautiful. And you're choosing to be like, to play into the I'm lost in terms of the I'm alone and it's quiet in this gorgeous place. And if I really ground, I realize that you can't get lost. There's one path. 80-year-old woman in bare feet or in sandals hiking up, and you're in all the gear, right? These are good riders. In India, traffic was just day 1 accident, day 2 accident. I really thought the trip was over early on.
Your ego has to break down because it can't take on the Himalayas.
And the question is, do you want to hold that? Do you want to perceive like that? And can we have the superpower to change how we see ourselves?
I'd like to welcome back to the show, returning champion, Adam Schomer.
I got my ring or my beads. Yeah, my returning
Exactly.
champion.
So you're a returning champion, not to Next Level Soul, sir, but you were on my other show, Indie Film Hustle, years ago, where we talked about the filmmaking process of the actual story and adventure that you went on, which we will talk about today, which is your amazing film and series, The Highest Pass and Road to Dharma. And when I was launching Next Level Soul TV, you were the first call I made. I'm like, I have to get these two projects on this plot. I mean, it's just a perfect match. I need that energy. I want that beautiful storytelling. I just wanted it on the platform, and you were so gracious to allow us to have it on the platform, brother. So I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. No, it's good to be thought of that way, like in the conscious space and documentary space, to be known a little bit, and appreciate it. That always feels good.
Yeah, man. So those projects were essentially about you and your yogi, which you don't hear often nowadays. You generally, in the 60s and 70s, maybe the 50s, you would hear, Maharishi and the Beatles in India and that kind of stuff, right? But, to actually sit down with someone who has a yogi, has a guru, and has had him for a while now, and he's been in your life for a long time, and then go on an adventure into the Himalayas on motorcycles, which you had never ridden at that point.
Never ridden at that point. I mean, mopeds, and poorly mopeds in India, crashing them. That's why the kids at some of the schools are like, "You're going on this ride with Anand? Like, you can't even park the moped at our school."
So your guru's name is Yogi Anand, right?
Anand.
Yes,
Anand Mehrotra. Yes.
Yes, and I've had him on the show twice before. I love Anand. He's just a profound, just profound amount of wisdom that comes from him,
and so relatable. Like, we're friends too. I consider my brother, my friend, just relatable. So it's not so guru-y in many ways.
Right. And can you, before we jump into this insanity that you did, can you talk about the guru student relationship? Because in the olden traditions, it was, very much kind of like, I mean, you and I are of similar vintage, sir. So we watched a lot of we watched a lot of martial art, kung fu theater on Sunday afternoons on back in the 80s. So you think of the master, you think of the student, and it's like a hard, the hard student, and again beats you, all that kind of stuff. Where you give your whole power away to the guru, and that's what it seems to be like, the olden ways of doing that. But it seems like your relationship with Anand's a little bit more modern. Can you explain what the traditional relationship is and what your relationship with your guru?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good question, because there's a lot of mistakes about what that is, that we are giving our power away, or that you're in a cult, or you're serving this or that. And there's so many cult movies nowadays that can make people scared of that, which is a bummer, right? Because there's so many good teachings. So I can't do justice on the whole tradition of guru student and explaining that, but I can say that the modern version, Anand and I are friends, we are brothers, And I also look to him as a wise master and teacher. And in many ways, guru is meant to be a mirror, and they're meant to lead you to yourself, not to be your guide in some way, but they're not your leader. You know, they're not telling you how to live. Anand is very, with me at least, hands off, steps in kind of like a good soccer coach when you need the correction, but let the game do the playing. You know, that's, to me, athletics is a good way to think about it, like a coach, where put people in the situations. And I used to coach soccer. I would create situations and games that are going to teach you the awareness. Oh, I got to look to the right, to the left. I got to be aware of everything that's going on so that I develop it on my own and know why I develop it versus someone just intellectually telling you in a classroom, because it just doesn't work on the soccer field. And same with life. You know, you need the experience. So Anand is very good at creating the experiences, letting life teach, and letting the person be, you know, the person they are. He's also a Vedic astrologer, so he knows people have different qualities and different times they're going to peak and different times they're ready for things. That's really, really important as a teacher, to know who can learn what when. So he's hands off in that way and gives the nudges when need, or if you're off, you know, sets you straight in a good way, like a nice, you know, disciplined father or teacher or kung fu master, like, hey, you're out of control, or bring it back down, or have some respect. And then maybe, like, you know, so there's that side of it, which I really loved from the athletic side. Like, it was let the experience do the teaching. But I could always ask him anything if I need be. And when it comes to wisdom, for me, I always really resonated listening to him just on an in the moment level. Like, oh, the teachings that are coming through right now, I'm connecting to it. My energy is shifting at this moment too. And I know it's seeping in, but I will have to go apply it in life for it to seep even deeper. So I would say that's the more modern relationship is you don't have to follow them. You don't have to live with them. You take it and you go apply it in the world. That's just how we live. I think it's why he's also made the teachings more available, because just we need to apply it in our life, and people can, and it can be less of a secret. You know, things can be less secret now. And the last thing I want to say is, of course, Yoda, you know, and Star Wars, right? If you have a Yoda back there, there we go.
Of course, I always have a little Yoda somewhere on my sets. On my live set, there's a Yoda. On this set, there's a Yoda. On my computer, there's always a Yoda, because Yoda is, for our generation, the idea of the guru, the master, someone who is so beyond evolved and so high frequency and so found enlightenment, wise beyond their years. I mean, Yoda is the perfect encapsulation of that.
Perfect. I think that's probably why I always, in some way, wanted that too in my life from Yoda. Like, wouldn't you want to go visit a master? And Yoda wasn't with Luke all the time, except in spirit, right? You can tap into it if you want to. He's there. And I feel the same. You can tap into the masters, right? The ascended masters, or just India in general, you can tap into. But Luke gets teachings, and then goes out and has his adventure and learns. I mean, it's, you know, they knocked it out of the park with Star Wars. And I think that's the modern, Yoda is kind of the modern yogi, or the modern guru, if you ask me. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no question. I mean, there's many that, I mean, just listen to the wisdom that George wrote out of that. Some of the lines that he, you know, do or do not, there is no try. And all these kind of like very powerful. He goes, that's impossible. That's why you fail. You know, these very.
That's great.
You know, these kind of deep things mixed into a sci-fi movie. But
impossible is a good, like, real good segue to what we did, because it really, on the surface, you know, riding motorcycles in the Himalayas, not knowing how to ride, is impossible in some ways, right? And I felt that way, and to jump forward after doing that pilgrimage, I felt in many ways, oh, I can do anything. Not that I'm not afraid of anything, but I can do anything, because I know when push comes to shove, I will transcend that fear. I found it in myself where I can go beyond it, and I've faced death, and I will have to face death many times. It doesn't end, but it inspired a lot of faith and a lot of confidence to take that pilgrimage, which is why we do them.
So before we jump into the insanity of Road to Dharma and going up into the Himalayas with a yogi on a motorcycle and you've never ridden before, how did you find, like, how does one find a guru? How does one find a yogi? I mean, I'm sure there's many that say it online. I'm a yogi, please send money. Um,
True.
I am
So
a guru.
true.
I will save you. Follow me. By the way, anyone says that, run away, because a guru would
Yeah.
never say that. A
Right.
real guru and a real yogi, a real teacher will help you find the truth and the power within yourself. If
Absolutely.
that's the way, they never say I am the way. If you hear somebody say I am the way or I am above you in another way, it's something that for me it's a kind of alarms going off.
Yeah.
Where
Red
if you
flag.
go to if you go to a master, they are obviously at a different place in the journey than you, not
Hmm.
above you or below you, just at a different place. And just like, my kids, I have a head start on them. So
Yes.
I am not above them. In many ways, they are wiser than me in many ways, and they teach me
And,
things all the time.
and you know that the whole like people think of the whole bowing to a guru, touching their feet, and that would scare people, and it would scare me. Back before I knew. But that's really when you're doing that, you're asking, may you're touching their feet because you're saying, may I have access to the experience that you have,
Mhm.
the path you've walked, the many experiences you had. So you touch their feet to say, may I access that wisdom? Not I bow to you and I give my life to you. I'm below you. You're asking. And I think that's cool, like just because
Yeah, that's
that's a
cool.
way you can interact with the world and the universe. Like, hey, help me out here. I'm not subservient to the universe. I'd like to, help me out here. Give me some wisdom from your experience, universe, that can help me on this journey because we're co-creating it. If I think we're playing correctly, we're co-creating.
So how does one find a guru, sir?
Yeah, I do not know. Okay, first of all, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do it. I didn't write the book. Find
www.
Yeah, find a guru for dummies.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely wasn't looking. One thing early, a pitfall I avoided early on is in my 20s, I was searching for the answer for the
Mm,
equation, call it Einstein, and I realized the equation I was looking for was so that I would know how to act in any situation. And so then you unravel that and you're like, oh, well, what is that? Oh, well, it's a form of perfection or doing it right or not wanting to be vulnerable or fail. And it's like, well, that's a fruitless, drop that. So looking for the equation or the way to be was actually just fear, I would think. So I dropped the idea of like one equation or one ring to rule them all because
mhm,
that's, if you look at
mhm,
Lord of the Rings, that
mhm.
causes problems. It,
Slight bit.
a little bit, burn that ring, burn that idea. So when I dropped that pitfall, I think I was less looking for a guru or looking for an answer or someone to save me, which we can
Mhm,
talk a little bit more when we talk superheroes like saviors. But I ended up moving from Detroit to LA. I'll cut some of the story down, but in the entertainment world, writing and all that stuff, came to LA to further that. My acting teacher that I met was also taking people to India. And at one point it clicked. It just clicked. I was like, oh my gosh. When I was 3, I had an Indian neighbor. I grew up with the smells of India. She actually cured cancer herself,
mhm,
which is amazing. I think back, some of the films I made heal, and you're like, whoa, that's interesting that I got fed that at 3, that was possible. And then one of my great friends I met in 7th grade is an Indian, Grunthik, and he's still one of my best friends. And then one of my best friends in improv comedy, Choksy, was Indian. And I go, okay, India has just been around me. I've always been drawn to, I read Gandhi's book. So it clicked. And I said, oh, I got to go. Because at first I was like, I don't want to travel with 15 actors to India. This sounds like horrible. Like the most dramatic thing you could do. And it ended up being a freaking blast. Like it's like great, like, just fun people, in India that are interested in themselves. So we had a great time, but that she brought me to Anand. He was the co-leader at the time. And so I just really got to know him in a very kind of organic, just nice way, like just sitting, talking to him about his family. And then I realized, wow, his teachings are very clear. And eventually I dropped the acting teacher. She was a little bit out there and, not the best person, but I stuck with I stuck with Anand. We learned some things and you're like, oh, she's a little manipulative and a little cultish. And
mhm.
eventually asked him if I could go study it one-on-one. So this, leading into guru-ness, I think at that point when I said, can I come just be in Rishikesh with you? And this was in 2000. I believe. No, this would be 2007, 2009. And so I stayed about 6 weeks, one-on-one with Anand, like every morning, meditating at the Ganga River at 5:30 a.m., doing yoga on the beach, having chai with the guys by the bridge, just the locals, reading a newspaper, just very, just talking wisdom, recording what he would say, and then I would write what he'd say. So this is like Mr. Miyagi type Karate Kid, paint the fence. I'd listen to what he said, I would record it, and then I would go write it as if writing a book. I would transcribe it, and it would just like really start to dip in. And so it was at the end of that, I would say during that trip, where I really was like, okay, this is my teacher, right, so to speak. I don't know if I was using the word guru at that point, but it didn't really matter. It was like, this is a sacred relationship. And so when he asked, would you like to go to the Himalayas, over the highest road in the world on motorcycles, even though I didn't know how to ride, and everything in me was like, this guy's going to kill you. I really felt that. Like, he had a prophecy he would die in his 20s, and he was in that age. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's trying to sacrifice me so that he doesn't have to live his prophet. All the stories. Seriously, the mind goes crazy places, Alex.
Yeah, you're a filmmaker and a creative artist as well. So you're storytelling in your own head. You're like, he's going to sacrifice me to the Himalayas.
Absolutely, that's a very plausible. And if I make the narrative version, that's what it's going to go for. But I said yes anyway. I remember. I mean, it's it's so clear, like slow motion. I remember making my lips move, and I said, just say yes, man. Say yes. This is Himalayas with a master, sacred sites. Come on, like, you have to say yes. So I made myself say yes, and then after that, let the fear come in for the many months after that in the lead up to the journey. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. All right, so Anand says, "Hey, let's go into the Himalayas on motorcycles." Yeah. I want to ask you, man, because you've never ridden motorcycles before. The Himalayas. When people watch the series and the film, they will understand that it is not a paved road, generally speaking.
Nothing in India is really paved, really.
Right. So it's treacherous, it's dangerous, and you're going to the highest road in the world. And it's, when I use the word road, it's very loosely. It's using that word road very loosely. You're also not only going, you and Anand, it's a group of you, and all of you have never done anything like this. So it was this giant group. Before you walked in, you kind of already knew what was going to happen. You already knew that this was going to be a difficult challenge. How did you overcome the fear, man? Because so many people would just say, are you insane? I would never do that.
Yeah. In fact, I showed Paul Reiser this, just to like name drop, Paul Reiser. And at one point he said, you're either really stupid or really brave, one of the two. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's a little both on some level. There has to be a little ignorance or a little innocence, stupidity to do something like this, to not know what is coming, right? Is helpful. To not know how crazy the traffic is in India, even though I had seen it, is helpful, because the traffic is probably the hardest thing, and the sheer cliffs and all that. But overcoming fear, no, I don't think I did. For sure in the lead up, I didn't. My mind was, like we were talking about, was doing all the stories. He's trying to kill me. I'm going to go sliding off the cliff. One of the passes is called Rotang. This is where the internet is terrible, because I look up, one of the a pass is a mountain pass, right? And again, the highest pass in the name of the film is the highest road pass at 18,600 feet. But one of the passes leading up to it, it's called Rotang Pass, which means like pile of dead bodies. That is what it translates to. And this is just not helpful to back in the valley where I was living in Los Angeles. I'm like, pile of dead bodies. So you just keep seeing yourself fall. And it's the wrong thing to keep thinking and seeing. It's fear. I just keep seeing myself flying off a cliff. So by no means was I overcoming it, but as Anand says in that journey, have more love than fear. So there was enough desire, there was enough knowing this is good for me, there was enough love, faith, I'll be okay, to overcome that fear, if you will. So to like a rocket ship, you gotta pierce gravity, you gotta be just a little more than gravity. But at the beginning, the rocket ship's going pretty slow, but that's a ton of force to just start doing that. So there's a lot of work and a lot of effort to just be a little bit above the fear. So I think people should recognize that even if you're really, really afraid of something, but you're still taking a movement, even if it's slow, that's a ton of force. That is a lot of effort, that is a lot of energy, and eventually you start to break the hold of gravity and get a little bit, farther and farther into the journey, and the fear becomes less as, okay, we gained the experience, we've been through the pile of dead bodies pass, we've been through the road killer traffic. And I watched people that were experienced motorcyclists getting hit by trucks, in our group of 7, people going down. And I'm thinking, if they're going down, like, we're toast. I'm toast. These are good riders, and India traffic was just day 1 accident, day 2 accident. I really thought the trip was over early on.
Really? So when you were, one thing that was really interesting watching the story unfold is that a lot of the people in the group, were some of them were a little bit, I think they didn't really understand what they were getting into, and
Maybe not.
and the pressure of the situation, and this happens to all of us in life. The pressure of the situation starts to really wear down on you to the point where you start snapping at people, or you start, because you're afraid, you're this or that. But I love what Anand, like, as a good teacher, a good guru would do. He slapped them around, not physically, but like, they were just like, we're not here for yoga. We're not here to, we're here to transcend.
Yeah.
And this is not a fun process. It was such a powerful statement, because so many people in the spiritual space, people who are searchers, people who are seekers, they're looking for enlightenment, but they don't want to go through the piles of dead bodies.
The piles of dead bodies.
The past. They don't want to go through the hardship. They just want to wake up and be Buddha, or be Jesus, or be Yogananda, or be someone who has found enlightenment, and go, I am now enlightened. I can now teach all of you. That's not what that is. Every one of those masters had to go through a lot of hardship to get to the place they were going to. So I thought it was such a powerful statement. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw on the ground? Because I know you didn't film every second that you were there. So what were the things going on that were not in the actual show and movie that you started to see behind the scenes? Just like people's psyches breaking down, because you're literally breaking down their ego. You're breaking down things. And that's not a fun process.
Yeah. And I mean, those specific quotes are from, Road to Dharma for the most part, which, little different journey, just as intense to these sacred sites. By that time, I knew how to ride a little bit, but there were people that were new to riding, and just like you said, just like wanting to feel better, so to speak, wanted it all to be rosy or yogic. So the Road to Dharma, we were able to show quite a bit more, I would say, because it's a 10 episode thing, and that was cool that we could do that. Some of the things we couldn't show were some people having real cathartic crying breakthroughs. And there were moments when Anand would be like, hey, turn the camera off. This is about this person's breakthrough right now. And for the camera, a bit of me is in pain, but you just go, it's one story. This is a person's life, and they need to be able to have the freedom to just go for it and dive in. So there were some things like that with Jen in episode 3 of the Road to Dharma, where we're going up Kedarnath, which is this amazing hike to 12,000 feet from 5,000 feet. And it's so difficult, like 10 hours of just straight up at altitude. And it brings up everything. And she just was bawling by the end with Anand, and we couldn't film, and I would have loved to. And then the thing, like one of the things in the highest pass was that the crew was really turning on me and turning on Anand.
I could imagine.
It's like a really cool, storytelling, so to speak, that these things were happening. So we get to this pass, Baralachala. So after Rotang Pass, after the pile of dead bodies, comes Baralachala. And it ended up being closed and because of snow, and we go up there, and the generals. So I go up there with part of the crew, Okay, I go up there with one camera guy, one audio guy, and my co-director. And the generals are like, no, it's closed, right? And then Anand comes down and says, we're going tomorrow, even though it's closed. Like, it doesn't really tell everybody that it's closed. So the crew is turning to me going like, what the heck is going on? So they definitely came at me because one of the crew members, which we didn't show had to go home because of altitude sickness because of that. We go up to talk to the general at 16,000 feet because of his exposure on that day, got altitude sickness. We had to send him back to a hospital and then fly him back. So we luckily had a second audio person. And luckily, of course, my friend Andy was okay. And he's an amazing sound and, designer here in Los Angeles. And it took him a little while to recover. But so that's something we didn't show. But then the crew really did. Basically, they're like, hey, I think Anand is going to get us hurt. This is really irresponsible. And that came to me, not to Anand. They were too afraid to say that to Anand, right? This is the kind of fun part. Like someone as a student, fellow students will come to you and express their fear, and that's your choice to take it on or not. But they would never say it to Anand. Right? Similar to Road to Dharma, there's some things, he even says it during there. He's like, do you think that lady at breakfast would have said that in front of me? And the guy goes, no. He's like, exactly. That's where you have to stand. You have to stand up for yourself. And I remember having to, stand there in front I lined the whole crew up and I just kind of bitched them out like a soccer coach would. And I was just like, step it up. All right. Just let's go. We're going on this thing. You're not going to die. Like this, I need you. And just grab a sack or whatever. I don't know what I can say on this podcast, but it was just the whole like rah football kind of halftime speech to the crew. Like, you're not going to die. And let's do this. Let's freaking do it. You can't show fear. Think about the people on the motorcycles. Let's go. But, the crew's didn't sign up necessarily for, hey, I want to come have a transcendent pilgrimage. They signed up to make a film. Yeah. Right. So at one point they're going, I'd rather not die. And I didn't say I wanted to, so when you sign up to do a film with Adam Schomer, like, watch out. That's what I tell everyone, no matter how non-dangerous it is, like, you're going to go through something, and it's not me trying to, it's just kind of like what happens.
So what were the biggest breakthroughs that you had on both of those trips, the first one and the highest pass and Road to Dharma? Like, what were the breakthroughs that you had spiritually and mentally and everything? Yeah.
And there's no specific moments because it is so intense the whole time. There's no ooh, aha, right? It's just, especially on those pilgrimages, it's so intense. It's hard to almost catch up with what's happening, but it's all coming in and processing. But I definitely walked away with this deep level of faith. And I don't mean belief. I don't mean belief in something or even belief in myself, just faith that it's not like that everything works out, just faith that I come through no matter what. And I think that would apply to death and everything. Like, we come through, like we do, like we're okay. And we have to live like that. You can't be riding with fear. You really can't. After a while, that becomes really clear. Like, if you're afraid and stressed for 12 hours on a motorcycle straight, your body will reject you. Your shoulders will reject you. Your system will reject you. Like, you're in trouble. And then specifically, there was a moment, we were riding at night getting toward Manali. So we're 12, 14 hours into a riding day, and we're trying to get to Manali, which is the gateway to the Himalayas. And we're riding at night. And in India, first of all, again, concrete here and there, of course, there's streets, but it's worse than that because it's potholes everywhere and cows and dirt and mud. So it would almost be better if it was all dirt, because then but it's just sporadic. So you're always having to look around. And then when it gets dark, you can't see any of that because there's no street lights really. And then what happens is the lights coming at you from the other cars are just blinding. So what happens, you get this blinding light, you don't know which way the road turns, etc. So there was absolute moments, and I'm not exaggerating, where I said, oh, I'm about to die. I know that I'm about to get hit head on at any moment because this is, half hour, an hour of this. And do I want to die stressed and afraid? So, straight question in my head, like, and I go, no, I don't want to die like this. And I go, then let go. And I go, all right, okay, then if I'm going to go, I'm going to go at peace. And here we go. And it's just like, and if you look back, it's probably inches at times that you're going by a fellow car on the road in the middle of the night. And I get a little emotional even saying it because it really is like at that moment, okay, I could be gone, and that's that. So that was a huge takeaway. Like, I do not want to die afraid and stressed, so I'm going to choose otherwise.
I think it sounds like you letting go of the fear because you truly, the situation that you put yourself in just it was kind of a perfect situation to either you have the choice, either stress yourself out and you're not going to make it. You just won't make it because the situation's so difficult. Kind of like a Navy SEALs, the hell week.
Yeah.
Those 2 weeks, like you can't fight it because the obstacle is so massive in front of you. Your ego has to break down because it can't take on the Himalayas. It can't take on this journey. So you have to release and let go. And when you let go, that's where the power is. And that's where the freedom is. And Agreed. It sounds like that's do you agree? Is that what you went
through? Absolutely. The freedom is there in the letting go. Yeah, absolutely.
But it was forcing, but it's forcing you to let go. It's not like you.
It's forcing you to make a choice. It's forcing you to make a choice. That's for sure. Because it becomes really clear after a while that in our daily life we can get away with stress, and it might not hit us. Maybe it hits us later in life with chronic illness, but day after day, on a motorcycle, you feel it like, oh my God, and the constant thought, and you're like, enough of that thought already. It's in my helmet. I don't want to keep thinking that same fearful pile of dead bodies. I'm going up. Enough. And you just like slap your ego in the face and say, shut up. We're going to enjoy the ride a bit. So it forces you to choose. It forces you to either stress out and die, quit, or let go. Like you do have three options, basically.
So let me ask you,
pilgrimage. Yeah, this is what pilgrimage does.
It does. There was I forgot who wrote it. Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, which are my favorite books of all time. He also wrote a book. I think it was about his pilgrimage. I forgot the name of it, something Manji or something. But it was this journey, this massive journey, and it was through this very legendary pass in Spain. Like you have to this long.
It might have been
road.
called the pilgrimage.
I think it was the pilgrimage. Yeah, it's kind of like their Appalachian Trail, like this insane thing to try to walk or hike or go through it, and all the adventures he went through. What you went through was very similar. The pilgrimage itself, generally speaking, or the journey itself, teaches you. Anyone who travels anywhere, even on vacation, there is a level of depending on the vacation, obviously. But if you go to Europe or you go to India, you go to China or you go to Japan,
out of the box a little bit.
Yeah. If you're out of your box, you're going to be challenged just by the nature of the journey. But you went into an environment that it sounds like, and the Himalayas are so magical, so mythical because of not only their beauty, but there's so much wisdom, so many stories told, especially in the Vedic traditions, the yogic philosophies and traditions, legends of, Babaji living in the Himalayas still to this day and these kind of things. But it sounds like the Himalayas themselves are a tool to find enlightenment in yourself. It helps you evolve by the pure nature of what it is. You can't go into the Himalayas and go up 19,000 feet, 20,000 feet, whatever it is, without stuff happening to you, man. Like on an emotional standpoint, on a spiritual standpoint, on a psychological standpoint, you're going to be challenged. It's kind of, and I'll use the Navy SEALs again, like you show up on Hell Week, you are not the same human being at the end. Even if you quit, you won't be the same human being that you did when you walked in. But just the nature of the Himalayas themselves it's kind of like the gauntlet. Would you agree?
I totally agree. Yeah. And it's got a force that's supporting you in many ways, challenging you, but like it is kind of a nurturing, harshly nurturing, but it's saying, come on, rise up with us. It's been the hotbed of yogic thought for so long, Tibet and the Buddhist teachings and the yogic teachings. It's all there. So in some ways, like the environment is already lifting you up to that frequency. It's already saying, come on, you can do it, versus maybe some other climates or other areas aren't. Florida might not be the best place. And it's nothing against Florida. It's just it's more like swampy, it's just a more tamasic, slow kind of vibe versus the Himalayas. It's cold, it's jagged, it's got the wisdom, it's got the thought. So it inspires you to go there, and for sure challenges you. That's for sure. So yeah, you can feel that there. As soon as it's my first time that I got to the snowy part of the Himalayas, I wanted just to walk in and just go and just disappear. It was just pulling me. It has that. It's consciousness. Yeah, there's consciousness there.
Did you, on your journey through the Himalayas, did you find those caves that people meditate in, and those areas did you find travelers? Did you find pilgrims? Kind of searching, doing a walkabout, if you will, in trying to find themselves in the Himalayas?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, there's caves everywhere. There's caves in Rishikesh, where Anand grew up, there that people have meditated in for 40 years. And, that yogis went silent, that Anand himself was silent in for 3 months. But yeah, especially in the road to Dharma, where we were going to we went to Kedarnath, which is a pilgrimage site. Everyone you're walking by is on a pilgrimage. So yeah, 80-year-old woman in bare feet or in sandals hiking up, and you're in all the gear, right?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, they're doing it too, and with a lot less. And they're just like, this is what I've always wanted to do in my life, is this pilgrimage. So yeah, for sure. Same with when we went to what was it? Well, anyway, we went to three other ones. Can't believe I can't remember the names of some of them. But Tungnath, oh my gosh, Tungnath as well. Jeez, there's a photo of it right behind. That's Tungnath right there behind me. I still keep the photos of the Himalayas. Pilgrims everywhere, and it's a good, especially in India, it's a good reminder because it's a lot of very simple, dedicated pilgrims. Old people that just wanted to do this, young people, less so like travelers per se. Just because
there's nothing casual about it. You can't casually just go and chill out and like, I'm gonna go see the Himalayas, like I'm gonna go to the Caribbean islands or something. It's like that's not a thing. Like you go there, it's a thing. It's a challenge. There's no 5-star resort anywhere around there.
No, yeah, like Kedarnath, you walk from 5,000 to 12,000. When you get up there, it's basic lodging, but there is lodging. And one of the girls I remember was scared because she was lost at the top. And Anand is like, first of all, how can you get lost? There's one town at the top, that's it. It's like a 5 square block town. Like, are you really lost? Like, take a moment and look around. Like, oh, you're also in the Himalayas at 12,000 feet in the stars. It's beautiful. And you're choosing to be like, to play into the I'm lost in terms of the I'm alone and it's quiet in this gorgeous place. And if I really ground, I realize that you can't get lost. There's one path, and then there's a small town with some basic lodging. You'll find us. It's not that big, but when fear comes up, like we were saying earlier, we drift off and tend to play into it versus maybe play into our staying power.
Whenever I've been in nature, especially in mountain ranges, and I lived in California like you do for a long time, and I went to a lot of the national parks, and you go to Yosemite or you go to Muir Woods, and it's almost you feel the energy of nature there. What was the energy like in the Himalayas? Or were you just I just want to survive this, that you didn't feel anything? I don't want to die today. I'm not feeling the vibes.
No. When you're in the Himalayas, you're in the Himalayas. And then the traffic kind of, in terms of motorcycling, the traffic is less because you're on roads. You're in a high plateau at that point of 11,000 feet and above, and then you're going over different passes. And then there was wild horses, at one point, and we did get to see them at 15,000 feet, and how magical. So yeah, it's total awe, and mountain lakes and monasteries. So it's another world. It's definitely it's otherworldly feeling. And I mean, I don't know. I love those monasteries, and I can sit by a Buddhist statue and somehow just be really taken away by it and connect to it. So for me, I just love it. I feel at home there. It's, again, none of it's very comfortable because it's always kind of a cold, simple place. Yeah, it's hard
all year long, and all year long it's like that pretty much.
Up there where the highest pass is, up in Ladakh, it's yes. You can only really go from June to, let's say, October in terms of flying in there. I mean, that's when people go, because otherwise it's really, really cold. But it's warm enough during the warm season where you can go. But yeah, it's absolutely inspiring. I mean, it's the Himalayas. It's beautiful. It's beautiful nature and it's beautiful spirit. So it's a nice mix. It's not like a ski town, which is great too. You know what I mean? But it's not like they've done that. They haven't created a ski town there in the high Himalayas for industry. Yes, there's a little tourism and a little bit of hiking and things, but for the most part, it's, wow, this is where a lot of the Tibetans have come, and in exiles to Ladakh, in that area, to Leh, and it's the best. And of course, these temples that are at high altitudes, it's only people that want to really connect with spirit. That's helpful.
So for people who don't know, what kind of philosophies, religions, spirituality did you encounter? Because it doesn't seem like it's, you're not catching a Catholic church up there, you're not getting a mosque up there, or are you? Like, what are the different? Like, because you said Tibetan, so is it Buddhism? Are we talking about Confucianism? Are we talking about yogic philosophies, Vedic, Hindu? What did you pass? What did you experience up there?
Yeah, I would say that the Buddhists, for sure, up in Ladakh, it's Tibetan Buddhism. Very, very heavily, which to me is all based in the yogic thought. So it's all the same source, but you might have different gods and goddesses than you have in yoga, but they're the same, different names, right? Green Tara and Lakshmi or whatever. So all feels very familiar. There was some other faith a little bit sprinkled in there, but no church per se. But like in Awake, like behind you in Yogananda, he integrated Jesus and things like that. So there were a few places where you might see Jesus or a couple other prophets. But it's very Tibetan Buddhism, which is great, because it's very hard to be in Tibet nowadays. So you get a little Tibet feeling.
And on a side note, just from being in India as many times as you have, Adam, is it true that Jesus is really kind of renowned as a master yogi in that culture? Like, is it something like it's like a great prophet or something like that you've seen?
I can't say that the general population of India thinks that.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's recognized. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, most people, I can't forget most people and forget I'm not a theologian, but a lot of people recognize that Jesus may have come to India and studied. And then returned. So he definitely pops up. He's around, he's around, and yes, recognized. But the religion's a little less, for sure, less prevalent. But so many religions in India. But mainly you're encountering the yogic religion, or so to speak. Hindu is kind of the wrong word, but that's what we go by.
But the big question is, did you run into Babaji while you were up there? Did you say hi to Baba? I'll give you a little reference.
His picture was in many places. Yeah.
For everyone listening who doesn't know who Babaji is a yogi, the master yogi of all masters of masters, essentially, according to Yogananda, and is still living in the Himalayas, still traveling. He's been alive for, I think he said in the autobiography of a yogi, 2,500 years. And, he worked with Jesus, he worked with Buddha, he worked with all of them and helped the situation. And he's still around today. And there are mythical stories of people running into him in the Himalayas. So I just had to ask. I mean, you were running around. I imagine you'd run into him.
Yeah, of course. We hung out, but I don't. He wouldn't let me film. He wouldn't sign
He
the
wouldn't let me.
non-disclosure, the release.
He wouldn't sign the release or the non-disclosure.
Yeah. So I have all the footage. Next time you're here, I'll show you. Uh,
Okay.
Feelings of Babaji, but no, I never saw like a apparition
No,
or
I'm
had a.
joking. I know. I didn't.
But
I
no, a
didn't
lot of
think you
people
would.
do. A lot of people do. No, a lot of, I mean, it's not, it may sound far-fetched, but it's really not. Like that question is actually a very real question because many people do report like, oh yes, Babaji came to me in some form, be it in dream or in spirit. So it's not that strange of a question. I don't think nowadays.
Adam, what was the biggest lesson you learned in that whole journey, man? I mean, when you came back and I mean, it's been years now since you did it. I mean, you did this in 2012. You released the show in or 2012, right? Or 2013, something like that.
2012 was Road to Dharma. We did that. Yep. And then 2009, 10, 9 and 10.
Uh-huh.
Well, 2010 was the highest pass.
Right. And then you released it only a few years ago, like before the pandemic or around the pandemic. So you've had
Yeah.
a long time to
Yes.
digest that experience. And I'm sure you've thought about it endlessly for years, probably thinking about the lessons you learned along those journey. What's the biggest takeaway you got from going into the Himalayas with a yogi on a motorcycle, never having driven a motorcycle before?
The biggest takeaway, not because I'll just go current because that's what's up for me is that we are all gonna die, and not in a poltergeist way. You remember when that guy was, "You're all gonna die."
Yeah,
That was difficult
exactly.
as a kid to watch that freaky guy. But no, in a good
Yes.
way, like we're all gonna die. So let's come to terms with it. Let's like riding on a motorcycle and facing, the traffic, like let's let go a bit of our stress. Do I want to, when I pass, do I want to hold on to the angers? Do I want to hold on to the resentments? So that tells me maybe I am holding on some anger and resentment or guilt or something like that I need to let go of, because death then helps me hey, look at it more head on and say, well, if you're going to die today, do you want to hold that? Okay, no, because otherwise we can skirt along with it just being there. So I find it as a good takeaway. If we're to pass away very soon, we're all going to die. Like, then what are you holding on to now that you just don't want to take on to the next life? Like I joked the other day at a meditation, it's like, hey, there's baggage fees when you die. You know what I mean? Like luggage fees. So, just take a carry-on. So drop the other crap and take only the essential, take the teachings, take the wisdom, but resentments and angers. And I wish it would have went that way, or I should have finished that. And I wish I would have, done. Like, so if we can live a little more, so for me, if I can integrate that a little more quickly when I see stuff come up, things I'm holding on to, that idea of like death right now, that's very helpful. At least right now, it seems like it's helpful for me at this moment because
Well, brother, I mean,
because I'm in the film world, and it's like dying every day. Trying to release a movie is like dying every day. So yeah, that's what
oh
I'm
my
going through,
God.
Alex. Yeah.
Truer words have never been spoken, sir.
Hmm.
Truer words have never been spoken. The
Yeah.
the journey of an independent filmmaker is a brutal one, almost as brutal as going into the Himalayas on a
It is
motorcycle to the
for the
highest
for the
pass.
ego. It's very humbling. That's true.
Oh God! And you've been doing it for a few years now, so you
Yeah.
must have no ego at this point.
I can't agree with that, but I'm working on it.
So I wanted to also talk about your new project, Selling Superman. Now,
Mhm.
Selling Superman is unlike anything I've ever seen
Oh,
because
cool.
I'm a comic book geek. I have been since I was a kid. I've collected comics for most of my adult life, even maybe a decade that I just had them in my closet and really didn't, once you have kids, it's a lot harder to have that conversation with the wife. Like, I need to buy this $500 comic book. That's a harder conversation to have back in the day.
Sure.
But it's always been a love of mine. And can you tell everybody about this amazing story of selling Superman? And what I love about it before you jump in is you snuck in this spirituality. You snuck in this deep thought, this deep reflection of why we collect and why we do these kind of things in our life. It was so, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh, Adam did this. There's nobody else on the planet who could have done this film like this. Because anyone else would have shot it straight. It's a story about this, this, and this. But then as the story, I'm like, oh, I can smell your stank being thrown all around it. I was like, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. It's stank everywhere. The spiritual stank you put over it.
Right.
So tell everybody Selling Superman's about.
Yeah, the hook is that there was this 40-year family secret collection of comic books. The father had been hoarding, but made everyone not talk about it. So it really was a 40-year family secret. And when he passed, then the son inherits this. And he inherits much more than 300,000 comic books and a Superman #1, at 7.0, valued at $3 million. He really inherits and unboxes his grief, his trauma, the way the father treated all of them. He has to kind of go through it. It forces him to look at and reveal to all of us this whole traumatic past of what a collector and a man who, it's not all collectors, but a man who's fixated and obsessive and doesn't give love to his family and is a perfectionist, how that affects, the family. And so on some level, it's this cool pop culture, comic book. What do you do with an amazing Holy Grail treasure? And then the other side of it, it's this really deep family portrait where we're looking at conditioning and how we're all conditioned by our family. And God, can you see it on the main character? It's just so it's really easy to relate and go, yeah, I'm conditioned too. And then ultimately, this is where my hand is there, right? My stank, as you say, my incense, my patchouli is all over it. The question is like, do we want to hold that story of ourselves that we inherited from our family? The father was really telling his son, like, he's not good enough over and over. And if you want to battle me, you better be over prepared. And that's turned into a very stressed out anxiety style of living or style of being. And the question is, do you want to hold that? Do you want to perceive like that? And can we have the superpower to change how we see ourselves and really value ourselves? And the value idea gets us right back into valuing comic books, valuing your family, valuing your time. And that's, again, a sleight of hand in there, the spiritual nature of myself, asking people to inquire, like, what's important to you, actually.
What's brilliant about the series is that he's constantly dealing with the trauma of what his father did to him over his life. And that he, if I remember correctly, he was undiagnosed on the spectrum, essentially, right? It's the father, correct?
Yeah, Asperger's,
Autistic.
that largely.
Asperger's.
And Asperger's, just so we're really clear, is one far end of the spectrum that is highly verbal, where a lot of times autism isn't as verbal. So, he was a lawyer, incredibly verbal, but more of the obsession, fixation, difficulty recognizing emotions when somebody else is uncomfortable. Very rational, that kind of condition.
Yeah, and that's a difficult. When you don't know what's going on, that's a very difficult human being, especially if they're your parent, to deal with. And then this obsession, this amazing obsession that he had with comic books, which as you go through it, he's not just collecting, comic books. He's buying 20, 30 issues at a time of the same copy. And maintaining them in near perfect condition. When you told me about your project and you told me about the collection, it is the mythical collection that every comic book collector in the world would ever want to run into. It is a mint shape, something from the 50s, 60s and up, if not older.
30s,
comic books, 30s, some of the books were in the 30s. Perfectly minted, sealed off hermetically somewhere in some room, climate controlled. That obsession, it's just it's a mythical collection. But that's one layer of it. But this other layer of the trauma and what it cost to have that collection, I think, is one of the biggest.
Cost.
The cost of that collection on the toll it took on the family makes you, as a collector of things, and I generally don't collect anything anymore. I've let go of so much. I truly don't have collections of anything. I even sold off my comic book collection, which I still beat
Wow.
myself up over. I only kept a handful of my comics. But looking at them, I started recently collecting again. Just like, oh, I wouldn't mind. And I was wondering, and then after I saw that movie, it was so funny because I had just started up again when I found out about you and your film, what you were doing with the movie. And then I was fresh in my mind, and we could have the deep conversation about comic books, which apparently you have no understanding about comic books, which is amazing. That you made an amazing documentary about comic books. You have no understanding about it. But it made me question, okay, what is it about these little books for me?
Yeah.
And it could be Pokemon cards, it could be baseball cards, it could be cars itself, like classic cars. It could be whatever you
Yeah.
want. What does that mean to you? And what is the emotional connection to them? Because in the case of comic books or any kind of those like baseball cards or those kind of collectibles, they're just pieces of paper with ink on them. So they're really the value that Superman has is a perceived value. All things in life have perceived value. We perceive gold as being a valuable metal. Has been since the beginning of humanity, essentially. It's always been. Now people are giving value to Bitcoin. Obviously, it's doing very well right now. So there's a value, but there's no inherent value other than to the perceiver. So I started to ask myself this deep question. I'm like, what is it about it? And I have to say, for me at least, and I'd love to hear what you kind of came up with and what he came up with and all the collectors you ran across, it was nostalgia.
Yeah.
It was nostalgia of when I picked up that book or where I was in my life when I saw that cover or reading that story, what it did for me at that moment. So I'm going to bring out my most valuable, I brought this onto the show,
Ooh.
my most valuable comic book in my small collection is
Valuable
right here.
in what way? In what way valuable?
Valuable to me and me alone because it's beat the hell up. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 6, which is the first appearance of the Lizard. For anybody listening who's over the age of us, this sounds ridiculous. But to me, this book, I bought this book with my father. He bought it for me at a comic book store called Tropic Comics. I'll never forget it, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, back in the day. It was $2.75. And at the time, I thought this was the coolest thing I've ever had because it was like one of the early Spider-Mans, but I could buy it. Like it was affordable because it was so, cheap. And it's beat the hell. I mean, anyone looking at it, you can see it's like the cover's ripped off and, it's falling apart. And I haven't even had it properly graded yet. I'm going to just for fun. But to me, when I sold my collection, I pulled this out. I pulled this and like maybe another 10 or 15 books out because those books had a very emotional attachment for me. This is invaluable to me. It means nothing. It truly, and the scope of what this is worth, I could maybe a couple $100, if that.
And is the character, is this beyond like the experience with your father, which is probably the key thing, but is the Lizard character or anyone like that? Does that mean something to you? Okay.
Spider-Man does. So Spider-Man. I've been a collector of Spider-Man since the beginning. So Spider-Man always was a big character that I loved. And I've collected Spider-Man and I've collected of other ones, Hulk and Wolverine and these kind of other kind of characters. But generally speaking, Spider-Man's always my go-to character. And the Lizard means nothing to me, but it's just that this was an original 6. Like if this was in mint shape, I think it runs, oh God, it'd probably be in the 50,000, maybe $40,000 to $50,000 world if it was in mint shape. I might be mistaken, it might be worth more in mint shape. Depending on the condition it's in, because they're so rare. But that book meant so much to me, and I literally just I'm 50 years old, and I'm telling you, I still remember finding it in the store, pulling it out, seeing $2.75, and saying, "Dad, can we buy this?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So the nostalgia for me is what connects me. What did you find in your travels?
This is what like fascinates me because yes, it's mostly nostalgia for people. It's mostly some part of a story also. So it might be an experience with the father or an experience with friends, or then, oh, that's certain story helped me in my life, like Iron Man really helped me deal with bullying, or that's what I wanted to be. People talk about that. Or some people are just like, oh, I love the cover. I love that art,
The art.
the art. But it still doesn't really explain why on a monetarily value world, it jumps up so high. Like I get it, like, because you don't need the greatest copy to have that vibe. You don't need a 9.0, a mint copy, in order to have the nostalgia of that book. You don't need that in order to appreciate the art even, really. And you don't need that to appreciate the story of it. So why is it then that we get a little obsessive? Why is it then that we have to have the best copy? And is it just because it's rare? That's where, to me, it becomes a little more the falsely and perceived and commodity driven world, because there are things that do have inherent value, like food you need, right? So there's a value in food, heat, shelter. These things do have value. Gold even is used for certain things, where
Correct.
Bitcoin is all made up, and the dollar in some ways is, but it's a huge agreement. It used to be backed by gold in some ways.
Yeah.
So
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. But yes, so I find it fascinating what we value and how we then commodify things. Even homes have gotten a bit commodified. I didn't go as into it as I wanted to. Really, in the part of my outline was like, oh, then go into commodities and what happened to the housing world, and how, once you turn it into a commodity, then people can't even afford to have the thing that they want, which is a place to live. And now they have to be renters. And even that's too expensive because everybody else commodified it, meaning big companies came in, right? So I think there's fun things to look at around that, even more than I did. But then, to bring it back to Spider-Man, one cool thing that some might think is a mistake, but it's not, is at one point we say in episode 4, with great responsibility comes great power. Okay, and I know Spider-Man's the opposite. With great power comes responsibility. But at that point, we're talking to a philosopher, and we're talking about Nietzsche and the Übermensch and internal power. Where I come from, when you take great responsibility, then power comes along with it. It's not the other way around. Yes, when you have great power, you should be responsible, but that doesn't always happen. Most people that get a lot of power aren't very responsible with it. But if you take responsibility for life, inherently you are a more internally powerful being. That's how I see it, the reverse.
Let me ask you, from your point of view of being a seeker all your life and, making a lot of conscious content in your career, why do you believe that there is such a fascination with superheroes in our culture? And it's not just the American culture, it's a worldwide culture. You'd be hard to find anybody on the planet who has not heard of Superman, has not heard of Batman, has not heard of Spider-Man. I mean, even in the Himalayas somewhere, I'm sure someone's wearing a Superman t-shirt, somewhere along the way, that kind of stuff. So why do you think there is this fascination with superheroes?
I think there's a few reasons. One, at least let's say in America, as religion became a little less the driving force in our world, where you had to be a certain religion and you had more religious freedom and more independence, we still were seeking some kind of savior. Without knowing it, we had that archetype of a savior that we needed to fill in. And I would challenge people to watch out for that and look for that. So the heroes represent to me that savior, that good feeling of someone will come and save the day, which, again, I could talk about more, but I think is a problem. Very much so, because the moment you keep waiting for a savior, you're giving your power away. Talk about a guru, to bring it back to the beginning. Oh, the guru is my savior. He's going to teach me. I'll give him all my power. That's not the way to go. That's not what a real guru would teach. The power's within. So I think one reason we love superheroes is we just crave a savior. And if we didn't have religion, we're going to put it into Superman. We're going to put it into some character that has more morality than I do, which is a good thing, actually. I would say the second reason is we want archetypes that remind us how to the best of ourselves also. So the savior, okay, not the greatest, but we crave it. A role model, the parts of us morally that we'd like to be and like to aspire to. I think that's where the heroes, come in. And then maybe on the third side, we love it because of the fantasy of, oh, I would love actually more power, you know, and it's great to think about, oh, if I could fly or if I could do this with the ring like Green Lantern, that's my guy, Green Lantern. I think those are the three reasons. And then you look back in time, you're like, oh yeah, archetypes, of course, just are there. Hanuman in the yoga tradition, as I bring up episode 4, he's this all-powerful guy like Superman. He really is. And Superman and Hanuman fight in certain cartoons. And then Hanuman rips his chest open just like Superman. And what's there in his heart is humanity, like Sita and Ram. He's serving the people. And you go, oh, and then here it comes again. And here's Superman. And he rips open his chest. And what's there? What's he do? You know, the S is a symbol of hope. And he's there to give humanity hope and help humanity. So we want to know that there's somebody like kind of fighting for us, I think, on some level. Like, and on the good side, it helps us have faith and hope. And on the bad side, it makes us maybe wait for a savior rather than taking responsibility. That's my 5-minute version of why I think we have these. What do you think? You've been collecting them for a while. Why do you think you were so drawn to it all?
My stepdad, I remember when I was introduced to comic books, I was in a flea market and there was a comic guy selling, and this is in the early 80s. And he's like, I go, what's that? He goes, oh, those are comic books. I mean, I was probably first grade, maybe. And he goes, and he said, Spider-Man's my guy. And that was the end for me at the time. He was my stepfather. And I said, sure, and from that point on, we started collecting. So it was something him and I did early on. And I still have a few books, not many left from those early days. I don't know how many. I think I sold them off when I sold off the collection. And by the way, that collection was pretty massive. I had like 10, nothing compared to his, of course, in the movie, but I had like 12 long boxes, all high quality, all stuff that I've been collecting. And I used to sell comic books back in the day on eBay.
Wow.
I had an eBay business when I was coming off almost making a movie for the mob. And I was almost bankrupt. I started a comic book business to try to make money. And it was, I used to just buy giant collections, and I mean, U-Haul.
And 12 long boxes, so people know it's probably 1,200 books, more or less.
I give or take probably around 1,200 to 1,500 books, but also those were the creme of the creme of like buying, you know, literally like U-Haul fulls of comics. Like, you know, I'd buy 200 boxes. 200 long boxes, like 200,000. We'd buy 200,000, and we'd go in there and just hunt and find things. To me now, thinking about that, I'm like, the hunt is fun. Now I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't like the hunt. I don't want the hunt. I'm not that guy anymore. I did back then. I like to sit there and just like look for the gem. Yeah. Now I'm like, I would like that one in a 9.6, please. Thank you. And
your values change, right? Yeah. Right.
My time is worth more than that. I need to spend time with family or work on what I'm doing. But the thing is, it's interesting in the collecting. When I started collecting again, I'm really collecting only things that I find valuable. So it's issues that I would like. Some of them are super valuable, but some of them are really, not that valuable. But I remember the cover, I remember the art, I remember where I was, and I would go and find those. They a few bucks here, a few bucks there, nothing too crazy. But it's really fascinating. I by the way, the one that got away for me, and then we'll finish up because I'm geeking out, as you know. The one that got away.
We can always ask Darren, like, does he have the one? Whatever you say, maybe he has the one that got away. Darren, the main character of Selling Superman.
We'll talk about that off air.
Okay.
But so this is number 6. I actually held a Spider-Man number 1. That I never forgot it. But the cover was like even worse than this. Probably like half about this much of the cover was ripped off, and it was in pretty bad shape, but not as bad as this. This is in much worse shape. They were selling it for $45, and I was I was in 6th grade. I didn't have $45 for me was, you might as well just said $1 million. Like, I just, and I wasn't going to ask my dad or my parents to spend $45 in the late 80s on a comic book. Like, that was, it's insane. That was an absolute insanity There was no really big collectors market. No one understood the value of these things. No one understood any of that. So it would have just been insane for a working, lower middle class family to ask for $45 for a comic book, and a beat up one, no less, and like a super beat up.
Total, it's the one that, it would be total speculation, total unnecessary.
No.
Yeah.
So I that's the one that got away from me. I'll never forget that comic. It was like, I can't believe I can't believe I got.
And that technically is the Amazing Spider-Man #1. Is that the title?
Oh, of course, yeah. That's basically the second appearance of Spider-Man. Not Amazing Fantasy. That's the first appearance, which is
first appearance
worth millions now if you have it in good shape. This is the #1 Amazing Spider-Man. If it was, and that, I mean, that's always been any of those first 100 issues are like, I want to collect all of those now, and I'm slowly trying to.
We can talk off air. Who knows? Maybe a lower grade one he has at a certain price point that makes sense.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. We'll have a talk. Dude, so Adam, where can people watch this amazing documentary series right now? Because it is such a beautiful film. Even if you are not a comic book collector, it's a fascinating journey down the rabbit hole of collecting, but it's really about the human story, and that's what I love about this series.
Agreed. Yeah, you can go on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Apple. You can buy it on Google Play. And if you forget the title, I mean, how can you? Selling Superman, because he's selling that Superman #1, which is worth $3, maybe $4 million. So yeah, or
did he sell
Superman.
it yet?
I mean, spoiler. We don't want to. Spoil it for people, whether or not he sells it. Yeah.
I don't remember if he sold it or not. But he did. He has been selling. But he has been selling off the collection little by little. I mean, in chunks.
Absolutely. You see, as you see in the series, he starts selling and partnering with people, and there is a big sale in the series, and that causes a lot of issues. Not to make a comic pun, issues, right?
Real quickly, I have to let everybody know though, that the book that he's talking about is #1 Superman. That's not the first appearance of Superman, but it's the #1 of his series. It's still an extremely, obviously valuable book.
Yes,
and it wasn't a case. It wasn't in a sealed, CGC comic graded
yes.
case.
When I came across but Darren's dad never got anything graded. So we know.
No.
He was too afraid. He was too afraid. Yeah. Darren got it graded, and it was CGC sealed case at a 7.0. So yeah, go ahead.
Right, and it's what I think the second best issue in existence.
At that time, there was an 8. There's 8.0s. There's 2 8.0s, 2 7.0s. But now I believe one of the 8.0s has become an 8.5. But that's a whole other story on how that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. We could get to that later, another day. But you had it in your hand when you were filming your little movie, and can you tell the audience what you did with the $3 million comic book, sir?
Yeah, again, spoiler alert, and I don't think it'll stop people from enjoying the film, but our crew did have a little faux pas with the Superman. It does drop, so you'll see the effect of that, which is great because the whole film series almost fell apart at that point. To be honest, you can imagine, someone being like, why am I letting you people, into my prized possession, my holy grail? And it really did affect Darren, the main character, just about all of it. Like, why am I giving rid of this? Should I slow down? But he didn't want to go into that collector mentality of hoarding. So this is really nice back and forth that us dropping the book helped show. So, in retrospect, it was kind of cool that the drop happened, but at the moment it's insanely painful to drop. I mean,
what happened in the series, my heart sank. I'm getting like chills thinking about it right now because the value of it and it's so, and on top of it, it's not even the money value. It's the attachment to his father, attachment to all this stuff. That's why I brought up all sorts of stuff when you drop it. And then, you have to go and get it checked to make sure it wasn't damaged. Did you hurt it? It's amazing.
Because if you, even people are like, oh, so you drop, but if you nick a little corner in these books, it goes from a 7 to a 5, and that's the difference, $2 million, and the difference between one of the best in the world to, it's a good copy.
A good copy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's pretty remarkable. So where else can they see it?
If you go to sellingsuperman.com, it has all the links, but Amazon, Apple, Google Play, And then there's a special edition at our website that has the bonus features as well. If you want to dive a little deeper, interview with my father's on there, and about how his collection got thrown away when he was a kid too.
Oh, Jesus. Now I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests, sir. What is your definition of living a good life?
Oh my gosh. Oh, God, being happy for no reason. You know, if you can do that, and not make happiness contingent, I think you're really on track for a good life.
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Adam, what advice would you give him?
Oh my gosh. To little Adam. Oh man, I would, God, would I tell him to not be so shy? Because I was pretty shy as a kid. But you can't just tell someone to not be shy. So I think I would just give him a big hug and be like, keep following your heart, man. You do great. And I'm proud of you. Yeah.
How do you define God or source?
Mahaprana, meaning the great consciousness. All consciousness is how I define God. All consciousness that is communicating at all times to itself, I define as God. Yeah.
What is love?
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. How many guests have gone into that song when you say that?
You're the first. You're the first.
Am I the first? Oh, Superman 1. I am the valuable. What is love? Oh, love to me is faith. Okay. Love is, so there's no love without faith. So meaning it is absolute surrender. It's absolute knowingness that we are connected. At one point in a Star Wars trilogy, somewhere in the whole universe of Star Wars, they ask him what the Force feels like. And he says, oh, it feels like a loving home. You know, like, or something like that you're just being loved and held. So to me, love is just like knowing that we're all connected and that everything is totally fine. And so it ends up slipping into faith. You know, love is not a contingent thing. It's just faith.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
I was going to say to have a next level soul, just to plug your TV station, but the purpose of life is to go sign up for next level soul. I think my intellectual answer is to evolve and to grow and to become more aware of that which we are, maybe more on a deeper level. I think the purpose of at least this life for me is to learn how to be happy, to learn how to let go of, angers and resentments and bring some, teachings and compassion to the world. I feel this is what I would say. The purpose of life is to become like a cove. Okay. Water always finds the ocean, right? You hear this often, but the ocean's a scary big place. So water always finds the ocean. You should feel calm in that, but you're right. But the ocean's huge and blue and scary, and so then within that ocean, the cove, meaning like the island that has a beach on which the water can wash upon and then go out and have an adventure. I feel like whatever we're talking about, that the cove is what the purpose might be. Yeah, is to become that cove, that safe place for others to wash upon. And also, the thing that's the island within all of this whole ocean of life. Yeah.
That was very poetic, sir. That was a great answer. I've asked that question a lot on this show. That's one of the more poetic answers to that one, my friend. Thank you.
That's recent for me. That realization was recent. I'm like, oh my gosh, a cove. That's what I'm really here for. To be a cove. That's the beingness. Anyway. Yeah.
So if people want to watch the new movie Selling Superman, just sellingsuperman.com. I hope everyone will check out Next Level Soul TV and watch The Highest Pass, Road to Dharma, or I've put it all into a collection called The Sacred Himalayas, Path to Inner Peace, which has all of it, plus the 2 interviews with Anand, and also this interview will be in there as well. So I hope everyone can check that out as well. And do you have any parting messages, sir?
No. I mean, that cove thing I think was enough. Right? Let's quit while we're ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. Adam, man, it's always, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show, brother. I can't wait
Likewise.
to see what you come up with next, man. You're a fantastic filmmaker. I love
Thank
the
you.
work that you're doing, and I love the work that you're putting out into the world, man. So I appreciate you and everything you're doing to help awaken this planet, brother. Thank you again.
You got it. God love your courageous heart for making this Next Level Soul TV. Thanks for doing it, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.